In this video, I will talk about how to record footage optimized for editing. You can save yourself a ton of time if you get this right from the beginning and not having to fix it in post-production. I will cover 3 scenarios: shooting the scene, before you take off, and when you have taken off. These tips will generally apply to drones across brands. If you're new around here, I'm Henrik Olsen, and if you want to improve your drone skills, learn about e-wheels, then consider subscribing to my weekly tips, tests and tutorials. And press the bell next to it so you don't miss out on future videos. Before you even take off, you need to make some important decisions about the camera settings. And one of the decisions that you need to make is the frame rate. I normally shoot in 24 or 25 frames per second. I sometimes go up to 30 frames per second, but not higher unless I have a wish to slow down the footage in post. There's no need to produce these extra high frame rates unless you need it for slow motion, because it will only make the file size bigger, and from a visual standpoint, 24 and 25 will produce a very nice cinematic looking result. And the next point is resolution, and you could decide for settling for 1080p if you're just producing videos for YouTube. But lately I've started recording most of my footage in 4K because I like that I have the option to crop the footage in post-production if I'm not completely happy with the scene that I've shot. So that will open up for a lot of extra possibilities when you're editing your footage. And if you don't mind the files are occupying a bit more space, a bit is maybe an understatement, then 4K is the way to go, even if the final rendering is 1080p. Color profile is another important topic. You could, if you are not into color grading in post-production, shoot in the standard color profile. That produces a okay, nice result. But if you want to increase the amount of information that you capture in your footage, you should go for a flat color profile. The flat color profile will increase the dynamic range of your footage and will allow you to grade it to different look and feel inside your editing software. I normally shoot in a flat profile, and then I will apply a lot that will basically bring it to a state where it looks pretty good. But if you're not into that, it's perfectly okay to get the job done by using the standard profile. Normally, I leave the style settings at 000. White balance is also very important. You can't put that in auto. You need to select white balance that matches the weather that you're flying. In this way, white will be white in your footage, and you don't need to mess around with that afterward. With some of the newer Mavic drones, you have a chance to use different codecs like H.265, which is optimized for better compression of 4K video. But that format is also very tough to handle in post-production. And you will probably experience that your footage will be laggy and not very good at playback. So in most cases, I recommend to shoot in H.264. That will ease the process a lot in post-processing. So after you have taken off, you need to pay attention that your footage does not end up overexposed. It's really important to avoid this because overexposed footage can rarely be recovered in post-production. You need to make sure that the footage is either correctly exposed or slightly underexposed, because with modern drones, it's actually possible to recover a lot of details from the dark areas instead of the highlights. The highlights are normally gone. You will end up with unusable footage in post-production. Default setting for the camera is auto when you start filming, and that is basically okay. Believe it or not, I said it's okay. But if you're new to the hobby and you just want to get out flying and filming and don't want to mess around with all the parameters that I'm going to talk about, then it's okay to use auto. Use auto, get out flying, get some recordings on your SD card and get comfortable flying the drone, and worry about the specific settings of the camera later. But if you want to take your videography or photography to another level, you need to understand the exposure triangle. The exposure triangle consists of 3 parameters: the aperture, the shutter speed and the ISO. To learn more about the interaction of these 3 parameters, I actually made a video that describes this in details with examples. And you can access this video through this card or in the description below in case it doesn't show up there. You probably many times heard about ND fillers, and you are probably wondering, should I buy ND fillers or can I even go out filming or taking photos without them? And of course you can, but that is also another tool that will help you up your video game. Normally you don't need ND fillers when taking photos, but as this video is about how to record footage optimized for editing, then you might need to know about the ND fillers. And the reason why you need them is that if you're capturing footage during bright sunlight, the shutter speed will be way too fast on your camera, and your footage will end up not looking very smooth and actually pretty jerky and artificial. And by adding an ND filler, it's like throwing on a pair of sunglasses. You will reduce the amount of light that hits the sensor, and in that way you will be able to slow down the shutter so you get this buttery smooth footage. In some cases also introduce motion blur, which is what we are used to seeing on the television. It's a little bit longer explanation how you use these filters and when you use them, but I also made a video about this, and this is not now, this video is not going to be a commercial for all my other stuff, but I thought it would make sense to include that video in case you want to know all the details about ND fillers. And you can access this video through this card or through the link below, up, down, wherever it's going to show. It will be in there somewhere. So now you've got the camera under control and we can move on to shooting the actual scene. And one of the things that you need to be aware of to make good footage is that you have to avoid rapid movements with the sticks. You need to operate them very soft. You might even need to adjust some of the parameters in the drone to slow down some of the stick responses to make it soft. But avoid rapid movements and rapid shift in direction, because that doesn't look cinematic. No one does this if they want the footage to look good. And I sometimes end up in situations where I actually mess up shots because I do jerky movements. But I will very often shoot the same scene several times because I want to have the option to choose the right clip. So that's very important. Don't settle for one shot of the scene. Try and repeat the same shot over and over and over again, and that will increase your chance of having some really useful footage in post-production. And over time, of course, you're getting better, so you don't need to do it like 50 times. So you can maybe do 1 or 2 retakes, and then you have the option to choose between. If you're interested, I could do a separate video about the drone moves that I normally use when I'm out filming. Let me know in the comment below. When you are flying towards a certain scene, then you're just not flying around randomly saying, okay, I wish for the best and I hope it will look good in post-production. You also need to think about your composition. And when I say composition is, what is it that you're trying to film? What is the primary object that you're trying to capture in your footage? And once you have determined that, you need to position that object in the best possible way in the frame. And there are certain techniques that will help you do that. One of them is the rule of third, where the screen is divided into 9 equally sized squares. The intersections between the squares are really important points, and you would normally position your object there or along the lines. And that will help you make a composition that is well balanced and basically emulate what everyone else in the professional industry is doing. I will leave a link for a guide down below for better understanding. The rule of third is not the only way to do a composition. You can also play with symmetry and all sorts of other ways of doing this. But at least you have a plan and an understanding how to arrange your scene in the footage, and that will increase the visual quality of your output. One thing that I see over and over again, and of course I'm also guilty in doing this, at least in the beginning, is that it's only aerial shots that you include in your drone videos. You should do yourself a favor and shoot some ground shots as well. It could be simple stuff like the drone is taking off, the drone is flying into the horizon, stuff like that. So you can mix this into your final video. That has nothing to do with recording video that's optimized for editing, but it will make your final product a lot more interesting for the viewers to watch. There is nothing as boring as a field where the drone is flying for like 5 minutes. At least it feels like 5 minutes. That is super boring. If you switched in, let's say that you want to film a cornfield, there's a tractor down there somewhere, it would be really nice to film that from above. Maybe you could circle around it. But if you could get some ground shots to mix in as well inside the footage, you will make the footage a lot more interesting for the viewer. There's a lot of ways to do this. So just to round that part off is that you need to keep your shots short. Maybe you don't need to do 2-second clips, but at least keep them below 5 seconds or so. And vary the angles that you are showing in your video. That will help a lot in the final product as well. And with that said, when you are airborne and filming, you need to film enough footage so you can cut out these pieces and use them inside. Maybe you want to use something from the beginning of the clip and something from the end to make short clips out of a long clip. So that is just a suggestion. When you film your footage during the day is also very important for the result, especially if it's a bright sunlight. Then filming at high noon is really a bad idea. You should strive to either film in the beginning of the day or in the end of the day. This is the time that's also known as the golden hour. You can make some really fantastic footage here with the long shadows and the soft golden light. So you should do that. If it's gray like it is right now, it doesn't really matter. So you could film any time of day. It's like having a big big soft box in the sky that will even out the light. So in that case, it doesn't matter. But if it's sunny, then you should go for the morning or the evening. This might not be an issue with the newer drones, but if you sometimes end up in a situation where you can see props in your footage, you should consider flying backwards instead of forward. In that way, the drone will tilt like that, and you will prevent the props from showing inside your footage. Do you have any additional tips that you want to add and share with all of us? Then leave it in the comment section below. I hope you liked this video. If so, then give it a like. If you didn't like it, then feel free to press the dislike button twice. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back. Finally, there's a little flying tip that I want to talk about, and that is you should try and... because that will ease your process in post. That will ease the process in post. That will ease the process in post. That will ease the process in post processing.